Hello guys. Welcome to Diablo the Primordial. This video is the continuation video after Troublesome Diablo. So if you have not watched it, then please watch it. The link is in the description. So without any further delay, let's start. But before we start, please like, subscribe and press the bell icon so you don't miss the updates. Normally, it would be ideal to protect him from the shadows, but it's not possible to hide things from Lord Rimuru. That's what Diablo thought. Moss had landed on the island and made contact with this William. He gave the new sticky steel ring that Soy had entrusted him to William, and they had communicated through thought transmission. He had likely used this direct method of contact to avoid the possibility of it being intercepted. In this aspect, Soy was very cautious. Diablo was so impressed that he left a lot of matters to him. So, what did Moss say? Don't get so excited. According to the collaborator William, Laplace is doing well. The combat instructors were better than expected and were trying to resist. Well, that's obvious. The academy is sponsored by Lord Rimuru. They have no need for useless people there. However, Soy ignored Diablo's words and talked about the report from William. And he knew full well that Diablo would be furious upon hearing it. It seems that there were teachers who didn't try to protect the students. Diablo became enraged in an instant. Kill them all? That's what we should tell Moss. Diablo said with a smile. There was no will to differentiate there. He wanted everyone other than Rimuru and the students massacred. Soy sighed deeply and then continued without changing his expression. I told you not to get too excited. Lord Rimuru has gone through the trouble of going out there for the very purpose of exposing those wretches. Lord Rimuru is not one to throw away the entire box because of one rotten fruit. Behind those words lay a certain sentiment. Lord Rimuru would never allow such a thing, you idiot. Diablo realized this and retaliated to Soy. That may be, but Lord Rimuru shouldn't have to be bothered by such a small thing. Indeed, I agree with that, and that is why we will deal with whoever mixed the rotten fruits in the box. It will have to be severe, so they will never think of something so foolish ever again. Oh? So, there is a possibility that someone is deliberately meddling with the academy. Is that what you are saying? Exactly. However, it is still under investigation whether it is coming from within the academy or from the outside. After hearing these words, Diablo's eye narrowed and he smiled. It might have seemed like a gentle expression, but it was actually an incredibly cold one. So much so, that some of the women who saw him as they walked past them on the streets ended up losing consciousness. This both satisfied and calmed Diablo to a certain degree, and so he asked Soy to continue. He had decided to hold back on his wrath until the time came to differentiate and judge those who were to be dealt with. Soy had been right all along. Once Diablo had become calm, he could immediately realize that there was no way that Rimuru would allow them to waste the personnel that he had spent so much effort in raising. It was only normal for him to work to remove the root of the problem instead. Soy saw that Diablo was satisfied with this, and continued his explanation. Currently, the only people who know of Rimuru's identity were the teachers who William, the collaborator, had seen as trustworthy. Soy had also agreed to this and had seen it as a convenient thing for Rimuru in the re-education of the students. However, what if this William doesn't have the best judgment? If that happens, then we'll have to kill them all, including William. Soy said bluntly. Soy himself felt that it was his error that he had not realized the current situation at the academy until Rimuru had pointed it out. And while he would make distinctions unlike Diablo, he meant to still put a purge into effect. Diablo liked his answer and readily agreed. It would not be good to bother Rimuru while he enjoyed the island. Both of them agreed on that point and also on the point that they should avoid any meddling past a certain point. Because of this, they should also respect the decisions of the teachers there and leave the rest to Rimuru. They would carry out the orders that they had been given. That was the answer that they settled on. Diablo and Soy looked at each other and nodded before walking through the gates of the Tempest Development of Human Resources Academy. Diablo and Soy were led to the president's office. Diablo was deep in thought and did not even glance at the person who had guided them and bowed politely before leaving. He understood Soy's argument, and he knew that it was right. What Soy thought was that if the academy was decaying, the reason must be that someone was doing it deliberately. If that was the case, he was right to stop Diablo, who was just going to purge it. Unlike his master who wanted to save everyone, Diablo felt that it was his role to convict people. However, if there was a possibility of self-purification still left in the academy, then it was his job to watch over it. The political and financial world, research and culture creation, also military defense. They needed to raise personnel who could be active in these fields. And in an ideal environment where people helped each other and did not allow corruption and infighting. That was the ideal the Rimuru had established. As for the realization of this ideal society, Rimuru himself had said that it was impossible. But he had also said that the process of pursuing this ideal, and the effort put into eradicating the foundation for corruption, was his true aim. Veldanava tried to lead people through having a demon lord become the enemy of humankind. Emperor Rudra tried to make humankind unite and stop fighting by having the angels strictly monitor civilization. As for the great demon lord Rimuru, who Diablo loved and respected, he wanted to decrease the corruption itself through changing the very nature of humans and increasing their ability to self-purify. And so attempting to corrupt the academy was to go against Rimuru's aim completely. It was the actions of an enemy. It was a challenge against Diablo. I thought that it was just that the self-purification wasn't working, but there's a possibility that that isn't the case. Indeed, if that's the case, I was imprudent to try and deal with it so simply. Still, it's hard to think that there is anyone so foolish to try and bother Lord Rimuru's plans. He had intended to deal with the incompetent people in Rimuru's place, but that was a mistake. If there were people who were so foolish as to try and upset Rimuru's policy for the academy, and they were successful, then it was him who was the incompetent one. He would crush these enemies. With a clear will, Diablo listened to what the president had to say. As Diablo and Soy sat on a sofa in front of him, the president began to explain the situation. This president was one of the early goblin members who had evolved after being named by Rimuru, so there was never any fear of betrayal. However, he was aware that he was being tested as well, and so he poured with sweat as he desperately spoke. He seemed to be acquainted with Soy, but the fact that both Diablo and Soy had visited him seemed to suggest to him that he had failed in some aspect, which made him very uneasy. There was a report from the collaborator that Soy had prepared. According to it, there was no chaos that could be observed from any awareness of rank or prejudice with the Tempest Development of Human Resources Academy. Soy checked all of these and had them confirmed. Diablo observed these details and determined whether or not there were lies mixed in with the president's words. Soy's questions continued without trouble. However, now, the last question. It seems that some of the teachers have taken an arrogant attitude towards the students. Why is this? Upon hearing this, the president's face looked severely bewildered. Diablo continued to smile as he observed his face carefully. It seemed that Soy had used his own roots to gain various information. He's a very reliable man at these times. It's no wonder that Lord Rimuru assigned such secrecy to him. Diablo was impressed as he watched the scene unfold. Yes, this problem has been bothering me, the president said while looking very troubled. He was apparently going to lay everything out honestly, instead of doubting Soy's words. Diablo and Soy listened to him. This was his explanation. There was a system in place for exchanging students between schools, and the same system also exchanged teachers. However, there were times when the teachers of nobility from the Ingrassia Academy would take an oppressive attitude towards the students. And it was these noble teachers who brought these men in white robes with them as guards. Preposterous. The three schools are all equal. I cannot understand why these teachers would treat the students in this way, said Soy. And this was the president's answer. About that, they insist that they are teaching the students about how to behave towards nobles before going out into the world. Additionally, it seems that the NNU Magic and Science Investigation Academy is receiving financial aid, and so they have sided with their stance. And because all three schools are supposed to be equal, their case has gone through. Not only did they have no clear reason for objecting, but the other schools were in agreement. And so he had no choice but to allow them to continue, explained the president. And while he said noble, all of the teachers who worked at the Ingrassia Academy would have to add former before it. But there were still kingdoms who kept the noble class, so they were not entirely wrong, either. It was not a bad thing to learn how to deal with people in a polite way. And while it was practically bribery to change one side's opinion with monetary aid, there was no clear proof of it. It was a difficult thing for the president, but as it had not caused any serious trouble yet, he had remained silent. That was the situation. Diablo thought. Until a moment ago, he would have decided that they should all be killed. But not now. If there was an enemy, he should find out what they were thinking so he could rout them out completely. He would not just pull out the stem and leaves and allow the roots to remain. Also, they, in fact, have tremendous abilities as well. The men in white robes are significantly stronger than our school's combat teachers. Perhaps it will be a good stimulant for the students. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. And if you guys have not watched my other videos, then please watch them. The links are in the description. And don't forget to like, subscribe and press the bell icon so you don't miss the updates.